Hello, wonderful students. Welcome to week two of this distance online learning. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are finding lots to do, lots of good things to learn, lots of good things to build your skills. We've been doing a lot of different projects around here. We finished up drywalling. We're building a bedroom for my son in the basement, so we finished up that. Um, Tiled a friend's chimney, and we're looking at building a go-kart. So we're really excited about that. We're finding stuff to improve our skills and work on stuff. Hopefully you guys are doing too. Email me anytime about what you guys are doing. And I'm going to be setting up a Zoom meeting for all of us. It's going to be optional, but I'm setting up a Zoom meeting for all of us as well. So looking forward to that. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Cycles and dispersals. Okay, some of the cycles you guys have already seen, I'm sure. Water cycle. You've probably already seen that, but we're going to go over that, review it, carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle. And then we're going to take a look at different ways that animals and plants disperse around their ecosystem. So, yeah, let's just jump right in. Okay. First one we're going to talk about is water cycle. And once again, I'm sure that you guys have seen this before. Okay. Basically, let's start out with evaporation, right? We got the ocean, water evaporates away. Now, cool thing is that that also purifies it because the salt, the contaminants, all that kind of stuff will stay in the ocean. Okay. It evaporates away, powered by the sun, obviously, condenses up high in the sky to make clouds. You have precipitation coming down, and you have groundwater, sorry, you have surface water. You have runoff going into lakes and streams and rivers and all that kind of stuff. So all of that, I'm sure you guys all know. Make sure you guys also know these two words as well: percolation and transpiration. Okay. Transpiration is trees, plants, stuff like that. I mean, their roots go down deep into the water, into the ground, and they just suck out water. And we don't realize it how much they actually suck out of the ground. A good sized oak tree can suck out about 3 bathtubs full of water per day. Okay, so that actually sucks a lot of water out of the ground and puts it back into the water cycle up here. Okay. Percolation. Percolation is another important one that you guys have to realize. Percolation is when it rains, groundwater, all that kind of stuff, it'll seep into the ground. It'll seep through the soil. Okay. Now you get down here into aquifers and stuff like that. Now, once again, that purifies the water. As it goes down, this acts just like a sand filter, just like a filter on your Brita or something like that. As it goes down into the ground, it cleans the water. That's why many of us, me included, if you're in the city and you drink city water, then you're not included in this. But we drink water from wells. I mean, I just have a pipe going into the ground and I just pump well water straight out of the ground. Okay. Now I do have a water softener to get rid of some of the hardness, but when I pump water straight out of the ground, it's clean. We have a little pond in our backyard. I can't drink straight from that. That's not clean. Animals poop in it, all that kind of stuff. I'll get GRD. I'll get big problems if I do drink that water. But you can drink groundwater and it's perfectly clean, perfectly pure, perfectly safe to be able to drink. Okay? So understand the cycle. Make sure you understand transpiration and percolation as well. So I'm not sure if that's something new to you or not. Okay? Then we have the carbon cycle. Let me move that around just a little bit. All right, cool. So the carbon cycle, how it used to be and how it is now are two very different things. Okay, carbon cycle, CO2 in the atmosphere, plants, trees, stuff like that breathe in CO2. They use the carbon. They use the carbon to incorporate into their body. So think of a tree. It's crazy to think about, but a tree, big old trunk, stuff like that. Did all that nutrients come from the ground? Actually not. Very little nutrients came from the ground. Trees are actually made out of air. And that's crazy to think about, but trees are made of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The tree takes off the carbon. The oxygen is just waste and it gives it to us, but the tree takes off the carbon and trees are made out of air. That means one of the best things to clean up our air is plant trees. Trees are just amazing at doing that. Okay, now to keep the cycle going, the tree will die, it'll decompose, that releases the carbon dioxide. We might chop down the tree and burn the wood for heat, that releases carbon dioxide. Plants, animals, we eat the plants, stuff like that, and we're going to release the carbon dioxide that way. Okay, now that's all a very short cycle. Okay, now, but what about the plants that do die? They get covered up by mud, covered up by water or whatever in a swamp, and then they become oil. Or you could also say, definitely, God created the earth with oil in it already. Now, we are burning millions and millions and millions of barrels of gasoline, of oil to make gasoline, stuff like that, for our cars, for industry, all that kind of stuff. Now, all that carbon dioxide has been out of the carbon cycle. We are pumping it out of the ground on a daily basis, and we're putting it back into the carbon cycle. And that's why many people are concerned about spikes in our carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. Now, it's really important to keep an eye on those because the big question is, as carbon dioxide levels go up, what's going to happen to global warming, the greenhouse effect, stuff like that. We know that more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will end up trapping more heat into the earth, because sunlight can get through the carbon dioxide. Once it changes into heat, it can't get out nearly as efficiently. We've all felt the greenhouse effect when you park your car on a sunny day. The sunlight can get into the car, changes into heat, and then has trouble getting out of your car. And that's why on an 80-degree day, it almost feels like your car is like 100 degrees or something like that. Okay? All right, next cycle that I'd like to take a look at is the nitrogen cycle. And let me go ahead and move that over just a little bit, make it a little bit easier. All right, cool. Now, nitrogen, 80% or 79% of the atmosphere, 79% of what you're breathing right now is nitrogen, N2 in the atmosphere. Okay, can you do anything with it? Absolutely not. You can't do anything with that. Plants can't do anything with it in this form as well. Okay, it needs to be fixed. It needs to be made into a usable form. Now, there's only a couple things that can do that. One thing is lightning. That's a very small amount of the nitrogen gets fixed through lightning, but you guys have probably ever seen, you have a rainstorm, you have a thunderstorm go through, lightning happens, and the grass looks greener the next day. And that's actually true. That actually is real. The grass is actually greener because it has the nitrogen that it needs. The lightning in the atmosphere can actually fix the nitrogen. Now, very little nitrogen actually gets fixed by lightning. Most of it gets fixed or put into a usable form by nitrogen fixing bacteria. Now, the crazy thing is, nitrogen fixing bacteria is only found on legumes. And that's basically like bean plants, stuff like that. So soybeans, cashews, nuts, that kind of stuff, excuse me, that has nitrogen fixing bacteria, okay? And so that makes the nitrogen into a usable form. It goes into the plants, we eat the plants, stuff like that. Now, once the plants die and they go back into the atmosphere, they decompose, then the nitrogen goes back into the atmosphere and it becomes into an unusable form again, okay? So this is really important with crop rotation. A lot of farmers around here, they'll do crop rotation, stuff like that. They will grow corn in their field for a couple years, and corn does not have any nitrogen fixing bacteria. It's not a bean, it's not a legume or anything like that. It's just going to suck the nitrogen out of the soil. And then the farmer will go ahead and plant beans for a year. Why? Because beans is a legume. Beans put nitrogen back into the soil. So 2 years of corn, 1 year beans. 2 years of corn, 1 year of beans. And that's a really good thing to do. If a farmer chooses not to do that, then they have to fertilize quite a bit. They have to put fertilizer on their field constantly to keep their corn, get a good healthy crop of corn. Now the question is, how do we make fertilizer? Well, the answer is it's not lightning, but it's electricity. They just use air, nitrogen in the air, fertilizer plants. They run arcs, electrical arcs. You guys have all seen electrical arcs before in the air, and that fixes the nitrogen. They collect the nitrogen and use that in fertilizer. Okay. Now, this is a really important thing that I wish developing countries would know, and maybe one of you guys are going to be the people to tell a developing country, because we've all heard about slash and burn. Slash and burn happens in the rainforest. The rainforest has very thin soil, very poor soil, because there's so much stuff growing there, the soil gets depleted right away. Farmers out there, they'll cut down and they'll burn areas of the rainforest, large areas, to clear it out, and then they'll grow crops there. And they can only grow crops there for a couple years. As soon as a couple years is up, they can't grow the crops there anymore. There's not enough nitrogen in the soil. And so because they don't know to plant a legume or something like that, they will then cut down more of the rainforest, slash and burn more rainforest, and just move their fields over. It would be so nice if they knew about the nitrogen cycle and they knew about legumes and nitrogen fixing and stuff like that, because then they wouldn't have to cut down more of the rainforest. Now, many of them are just trying to get by, so it's hard to get upset with them, angry with them, but that's an interesting thing that's going on. Okay, so the three different cycles that we talked about was the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and the nitrogen cycle. Okay, make sure you know about those three. There's going to be another video on dispersal of animals, dispersal on seeds, stuff like that. But I am going to cut this down because the Screencast-O-Matic, which I'm using to make these videos, limits me to a 15-minute recording. So thank you so much. Hope you guys are doing very, very well. Hope you're not going nuts, being cooped up and stuff like that. Thank you for doing the social distancing. Thank you for doing the online learning.